On Friday, February 3rd, 2012, over 400 people gathered at Thessalonia Worship Center in the South Bronx to watch an independent film. This film was called Speedsuit. It was based on the novel Speedsuit Powers, which was written by Alan Paul Weaver III. Alan adapted his novel into the screenplay, which would serve as the script for the film. What you are about to watch is the story behind the story, as we look back at the making of the film, its message, and its impact. It's hard to believe that a decade has already passed, and yet, the message of the film and the book which inspired it is needed now more than ever. So, how did this film come about? First, we need to highlight the book, and then we'll look at a pivotal conversation which would set everything in motion. Alan wrote Speedsuit Powers for the purpose of inspiring youth and young adults in urban communities, and the very first promo video for the book does an excellent job at explaining its premise.
A novel by Alan Paul Weaver III. Imagine moving from the suburbs to the inner city and colliding with a school bully who's bigger, stronger, and faster than you. What do? Curtis Powers is living this life. Ninth grade at a new school is hard enough without Trayshawn Jenkins making his days miserable. Curtis just wants to pursue his dreams. Now, he's got to avoid his nemesis too. Some call Curtis a geek, but his smarts won't stop the inevitable. Trayshawn is coming fast, and Curtis must do something or face the worst beatdown of his life. With help from his family, his best friend Kelly, and others, he'll put a high-tech plan into action that will do more than anyone thought possible. And in the process, he'll learn that when you can't outrun your problems, you have to face them head-on. Finally, the story you've been waiting for, Speedsuit Powers. New kid, new school, new drama. Launches December 2009.
At its heart, Speedsuit Powers is about two fatherless boys who are struggling to find meaning in their lives. They start out as enemies, but after a series of dramatic events, they discover they are stronger together as friends. As soon as the book was published in the fall of 2009, it began its climb to significance. By 2010, through word of mouth, social media, and several interviews on the public cable station BronxNet, Speedsuit Powers had a growing local readership in the Bronx, Harlem, Manhattan, and Westchester County. Then its reach began to extend into Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Ohio, Kansas, Texas, New Mexico, and California. One fateful day, an adult reader in Memphis, Tennessee was so moved by the novel that she purchased 200 copies and gave them out to youth and educators in her city. Not only was readership growing, but the demographics of the readers were changing. In addition to urban middle school children, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders began reading the story, as well as high school and college students. Even adults with children and grandchildren were reading Speedsuit Powers, and the story was appealing to Black, white, Hispanic, and Asian readers as well. As the feedback began to come in, there was a growing consensus. This book needs to be made into a movie. Now we come to that pivotal conversation. It happened during the wee hours of Saturday, January 1st, 2011, New Year's Day. Alan and his father had met at a local diner after watch night service at church and found themselves talking about the future.
So, what are your plans for 2011?
I don't know. I was thinking about the possibility of trying to get my novel picked up by a production studio to turn it into a TV series or maybe a film.
Well, why don't you produce it yourself as a pilot?
You think I could do that?
That's what you went to college for, isn't it? I believe you can do it.
There it was, a positive affirmation from a father to his son. Interestingly, as we said, Speedsuit Powers is about the impact of fathers on their sons. So the seed was planted. Several days later, it would begin to germinate. The next day, Alan reached out to his good friend Monique Lisa, who owned her own theater production company. A few years earlier, they had talked about wanting to collaborate on a project one day. Now, that day had arrived. He asked if she would be interested in partnering with him to produce the film. She agreed. Now all that was needed was the fleshing out of the plan and funding.
Dad, remember a few days ago when you said I should produce the movie myself?
Uh-huh.
Well, you told me you believed I could do it.
Yeah, I did. I believe you can.
Well, I thought about it and pulled together a list of what I need to make it happen. And I need your help.
With what?
Well, I need to go to California for 4 days to attend a film festival that I went to last year. I have some contacts out there who I can meet with, and they can give me some guidance.
Well, why are you asking me?
I don't have enough money to afford the plane ticket, hotel, and the rental car.
Plane ticket? Hotel and rental car? Boy, you better ask your mother.
A month later, Alan had written a treatment for the script, adapted his novel into the screenplay, researched the type of camera equipment needed to film the movie, and was on a plane to California. There, he received valuable guidance from industry professionals and was also introduced to an angel investor. After a 2-hour-long pitching meeting, the angel investor agreed to greenlight the film by funding the $200,000 budget. Everything seemed to be coming together. Alan called Monique Lisa with the news. Now it was time to plan the pre-production, production, and post-production schedules. Then the casting process to find the actors who would bring the characters on the written page to life could begin. The goal was to premiere and tour the film during Black History Month in 2012. From that hard deadline, Alan and Monique Lisa determined that pre-production, the time reserved for casting, rehearsals, securing locations, wardrobes, storyboarding, and a host of other preparations, would be from March to June of 2011. Production, the time when the film is actually shot, would be from July to September. And post-production, the time when the various scenes would be edited together into a cohesive whole, would be from October to January. Once the timeline and logistics were determined, Alan approached his pastor at Thessalonia Worship Center, the late Reverend Dr. Shelley Sampson Jr., to ask if the church could support his filmmaking endeavor. With the pastor's blessing and involvement, the entire church united to help make Speedsuit happen. Everything seemed to be coming together. But there was a nagging thought in the back of Alan's mind. Even though funding had been secured, he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to pursue an additional source through crowdfunding. So he did. This would prove useful in the months ahead. Monique Lisa oversaw the entire casting call process. As an independent theater producer, she was able to tap into her network of actors. 2 casting sessions were scheduled. The first was at Thessalonia. The second was held in Manhattan. Interestingly, the young lady who would end up playing Kelly Washington would come to the project by a chance run-in with Alan on the Metro-North train. When the process was complete, the actors were brought together for the table read, and they fell in love with the story.
Well, we want to say welcome. We are really happy to have you all here. All of you are incredibly talented actors and actresses. You're very gifted, and it's an honor to even have you read something that I've written. That's an honor. So thank you for that.
But listen, you're the man of the house while I'm away. Don't worry about the new school. You got this.
I hope so. So, how's the Navy?
I worked on a Harrier jet yesterday.
A Harrier jet? I've only seen one on TV.
If you stand too close when it takes off, the thrust will knock you on your backside. You gotta get going. I don't want you to be late for school.
Watch out, fool. You see me walking here?
Mr. Jenkins, summer's over. You know the rules. Lose the do-rag.
I told you about saying my name, Mr. Andre.
You don't like it? Maybe I don't like how you act in my hallway.
Since when is it your hallway?
You see this t-shirt? What does it say? Hall monitor. That means these are my halls, TJ.
My name is Little Treacherous.
Please. This ain't the streets, Shay Sean. Where your books?
I got everything I need right here.
Uh-huh.
Yo, check out that kid. Hey, you with the glasses and messed up clothes. I'm talking to you. I know you hear me.
I'm late for class.
You gonna be late, alright? Real late if you don't stop walking away.
Hi, I'm Curtis. What's your name?
Get your hands off me, Melvin. You're not my father.
Boy, I will knock your teeth in the back of your throat. Everybody knows your old man don't want you. So you go to your room and stay out of grown folks' business.
I don't know why my mom's put up with your dumb self.
What you say, boy?
Trey Sean, I leave you for 5 minutes and you start trouble again.
I'm not doing nothing to him, Ma. Look what he did to me.
Well, maybe you had it coming, Trey Sean.
How you taking his side, Ma?
Everything is not about you.
Don't ever come here again.
And the Oscar goes to...
What line? That's what line over here.
The characters on the pages of the book and screenplay were coming alive right before everyone's eyes. Rehearsals began, parts were memorized, wardrobes were determined, an original musical score was being composed, a crew was put together, shooting dates were finalized, and storyboards, which are a series of pictures drawn to help actors and crew gain a visual sense of the film, were created. One of the few things left to do was secure the locations. And this is where the story about overcoming opposition would, in real life, face opposition of its own. There were a series of locations that were easy to acquire, like a side street or an alleyway. However, for this film to work, the cast needed access to several major locations. 4 different homes, a church, a school, a dance studio, a hospital, a cemetery, and an aircraft carrier. The homes came quickly. Alan's parents allowed their house to be used for the homes of Curtis's family and Mr. Grabowski, the physics teacher whom Curtis affectionately called Mr. G. One of his parents' neighbor's house doubled as the exterior for Mr. G's residence. Alan's mother-in-law graciously allowed him to use her apartment for Curtis's family's second residence after, in the story, they lose their house.
Action. Omar.
Hey, little bro. How are things going?
Good. Mom's being pushy though.
Nothing new there. She's just anxious about your first day.
Yeah, I know.
You ready?
I guess so. I wish Dad was here.
Yeah, me too. Things would be a lot easier. But listen, you're the man of the house while I'm away. Don't worry about the new school. You got this.
Mic is on.
Mike's on.
Okay. Action.
I think it's obvious. She likes you.
How much?
Trust me. I know.
I'm just a skinny twig.
Hey, you're a powers man. When you lack a physique, you make up for an intellect.
Oh, I'm like melting.
Sorry, me too.
It's beautiful.
Anybody else like sweating in their seat?
Well, considering the 3 of us have on sweaters, and it's 103 degrees outside.
Okay, well, you know what? We'll turn the AC on.
No, it's good, it's good.
No, we can shoot. Let's shoot. Let's shoot.
All
Let's
right,
shoot.
come on.
Get it in now.
Let's get it poppin'.
You all is hot.
Heads bowed.
Bow our heads in prayer.
One of Thessalonia's church members, Miss Lucille, allowed her home to double for the home of Trayshawn and his mother Shakira, as well as for Kelly's residence. This was significant because one of the movie's most crucial scenes would be filmed there. The dance studio was also acquired without any issues. In the story, Kelly Washington is an amazing ballet dancer. For the production, a wonderful dance teacher from Harlem brought her students to a Manhattan studio for filming. While the houses and dance studio came rather quickly, the schools were another matter altogether. Since the story primarily took place in the South Bronx, Alan initially tried to secure school locations in that area. His first choice was a school that was centrally located to the other filming locations. Alan already had a relationship with the principal there. The principal readily agreed to provide the school, but stated that the final decision did not rest with him, but rather with the appropriate district and film permit authorities. Allen's initial request for the use of this first school was denied due to scheduled construction work that was to take place during the summer months. He then requested 4 other schools and was also denied. Allen then reached out to several Catholic schools which were located in the Bronx. They too were not available for the dates he needed. He then approached the New Rochelle School District, where he had matriculated as a youth. The principal of Albert Leonard Middle School was in favor of having a former student use the school as a film location. However, the final decision rested with the superintendent, who ended up denying the usage of both the middle school and the high school. Nothing made sense. Why would a superintendent deny access to an alum of the school system who was trying to do something positive in the community to help young people? An answer was never provided besides, "These schools are not available for the dates you have requested." The superintendent made no attempt to offer any other options. However, God had a plan. Pastor Sampson offered his church's cultural center as the location for the school's interior. This made perfect sense, since the church's own private academy was housed on the bottom floor, and the upper floors were rented out as an alternative school site to New York City's Department of Education. Pastor Sampson told Allen, "Take as much time as you need to film." This turned out to be God's providence at work because the school scenes were originally scheduled to take 3 days to film. It ended up taking 6 days. Had the production taken place at any other location, accommodations for the additional days would not have been possible. An additional obstacle was just around the corner. This one even more massive than the first. 2 months before filming was to begin, the angel investor from California stopped returning Allen's phone calls. Up until this point, they talked regularly as Allen updated the investor on the pre-production process. The check had been slated to arrive 1 month before filming was to begin in order to cover several major costs. Allen and Monique Lisa had used their own money so far to cover their upfront expenses. 3 weeks before filming, the investor finally called, but it was not the news Allen wanted to hear. If you recall, the economy wasn't doing well in mid-2011. It turns out that the investor's business had taken a major downturn and he was no longer in a position to fund the film. He himself was now struggling to keep his company from closing. To say this news was devastating would be an understatement, and its repercussions affected everything. The cast had already turned down other paying jobs in order to work on Speedsuit, and Allen had already been in talks with the Intrepid Air and Space Museum. This was going to be used as the aircraft carrier location for Curtis's brother Omar, who was in the Navy. Now, with no money to cover the rental fee, this option was no longer available. Another result of this financial fallout was the disintegration of the orchestra that was in the process of being pulled together to record the original musical score Allen and a friend were composing. Also, a director of photography had agreed to shoot the film so Allen could focus on directing. The DP is responsible for creating the visual look of a film through the camera lens. This includes not only filming each scene, but also making sure each location is appropriately lit. A DP also works collaboratively with the director to ensure that the director's vision for the film is accomplished. But, having no money to pay the DP rate up front, the DP left the project and took his cameras, lighting equipment, and assistants with him. This was a crisis. For a few days, Allen didn't know what to do. Was this a sign? Was God telling him to cease and desist? Should he quit and scrap the entire project? Had he made a mistake moving forward with the promise of a check instead of waiting until he actually had the check in hand? Even with all this internal uncertainty, Providence was still at work. Remember that nagging feeling that Allen should do crowdfunding to raise additional money? While his Kickstarter campaign, which sought to raise $50,000, was unsuccessful at reaching its goal, everyone who made a commitment still gave their pledge. That money, along with his own, was enough to cover the initial costs of filming. But how does one get over the hump of internal uncertainty to carry out the dream which lives in their heart? After a few sleepless nights and a conversation with his wife and his producing partner, Alan called an emergency meeting with the cast to explain the situation. More than 90% of the budget was gone before it had arrived. He had enough money to cover half of their agreed upon stipends. If they gave him an additional 6 months, he would raise the rest. The question was, did they still want to take the journey and do this film? 2 supporting cast members dropped out, but were easily replaceable. The main cast members agreed to continue the journey because they believed in the story and were grateful to learn about the financial challenges up front. Some had already worked on other films where the director did not mention a lack of funds until after they had performed their roles. So the production would move forward, full steam ahead, even if it became a much smaller film. With only a handful of crew volunteers, the key role of lead production assistant was filled by Jana Robinson, who worked tirelessly in multiple capacities to help ensure the completion of filming. Cast members would assist the crew where necessary, and they would also be responsible for their own wardrobe and makeup. Alan would have to both direct and be the director of photography, while Monique Lisa would also serve as assistant director. Instead of filming at the Intrepid Air and Space Museum, green screen would be used to place Omar in an aircraft carrier environment. And crowd scenes were made up of members from 2 churches. All that was left was to begin filming and to find a hospital location. By now, this entire production was bathed in prayer, and the cast and crew would discover that God does indeed provide for what we need, often at the very last minute. After all, how would we know that God is a deliverer if we never face situations which required deliverance? With only days before the hospital scenes were scheduled to be filmed, Alan had a conversation with a friend who had invested in the project. He told her about his need for a location. It turned out that she had a 6 degrees of separation connection to the decision makers at the hospital in New Rochelle. A meeting was scheduled where Alan told the decision maker about the movie, its message, and the need to film at a hospital.
This movie is about finding solutions to bullying?
Yes.
Okay, your production can use our space. We have a corner wing on one of the upper floors that's not being used right now. You can have it for 4 hours.
It turns out that the decision maker was impacted by a news story from the day before where an elementary student in New Rochelle had undergone tremendous bullying, and the outcome had been unfortunate.
If your film can help reduce bullying in our schools, then I am happy to help at no charge.
Once again, God had provided. Even though the budget had been slashed by more than 90%, each day proved to be a faith walk, and it seemed that God was leading the way. Filming lasted just over 30 days. The first day began at Alan's wife's mother's apartment, and as the days progressed, the cast found themselves trekking across the Bronx, New Rochelle, and Manhattan as they filmed on city streets and in neighborhoods, on subway trains and parking lots, in fields, studios, and houses, and at a church.
Quiet on the set, please. Quiet in the sanctuary.
In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name, we come to you. We come to you.
Action. Slower. Right there, right there. Good. All right, good. Let's do it again. Everybody clear the hall.
Shouldn't I already be on a different side? Because I feel like I should just walk out.
Okay, so,
but that's weird though, because it's still my brother.
Exactly, that's what we're saying
It should
before.
Yeah, no, he should be defeated but not leave, right? Because he's used to me going like.
I mean, remember y'all went toe to toe. Who cares about your knee, Paul? What about whatever?
So it's nice if we can be on either side of it.
Right.
You know?
No, I think that's perfect. The diagonal is perfect.
All right, so let's try that.
But I'm still here.
Yeah, you're still here. So
You in trouble?
The main reason we are here.
It's all physics.
Y'all both said the same thing.
Where's the physics lab?
Oh gosh.
Here, and then I wind up right here.
See,
So if I'm right here,
Boom.
Jen's here.
Yep.
And, yeah. All right, you want to run it one more time?
Yep.
Or
Wait, one more
All
time.
Sound of recovery.
Yep. All right, here we go. Here we go. Sound is rolling. We've got bars. Action.
Miranda, I am so sorry.
No need to apologize, Jim. I know it wasn't intentional. I know, but you cannot plan for everything, Omar. Unexpected things happen all the time.
So something went wrong. The boot snapped, and
Security.
and I don't understand what went wrong. I gotta figure out the calculations. I gotta redo the thing.
I hate you both. I hate you both.
We love you too, Mom.
Let's go and run this line, boys.
All right, come on. Curtis, you're in the bed.
Well, wait, if you don't move.
You ain't really heard. It's just a movie.
It's more than that. We're making history.
Mm-hmm. Just don't make me have to make you two history.
All right, you can start recording. We've got sound.
Recording sound.
And action. Action.
Mr. G, did you bring the boots with you?
Yeah, they're locked behind my desk. Don't tell me that was you they were talking about this morning. I overheard some of my students saying someone was going to get jumped after school.
They're talking about me.
All right, don't panic. I'll notify the principal, call your brother, and meet me here right after last period.
Okay.
Let's do it again. My bad.
Too much noise in the background too.
Watch it.
Yeah, I hear it, but we have to work around that.
Work around. Work around.
Watch your T's.
Watch your teeth.
Watch your T's.
What?
That's the way
Oh, I thought
it
you were gonna
is
keep it going.
out here. Yeah, that's the way it is out here.
Watch
Yeah,
your
That's
T's.
the way it is.
You think you better than
Yeah,
us?
that's the way it is out here. Yeah, that's the way it is out here. Hey, that's the way it is out here. Yeah, that's
It was a whirlwind of excitement as the cast and crew moved from one location to another. And every so often, people would stop to watch and ask about the film and its message.
You guys are doing fantastic. I said, Lord Jehovah God, is this balance? This is what? Who was doing that? Who was saying get off me?
Oh,
Trey Shaw. Right there. Trey Shaw, I gotta get to you. I should act myself. Trey Shaw, I'm telling you, I was getting ready to call the police. God, that's excellent. You keep up the good work, fantastic.
Thank you.
You guys can stay off the street, that's good.
Thank you.
See that? You do something positive. Make your whole blessing. Okay, keep going, okay? All right, keep the good work, people. Okay.
In addition, Alan's wife and her mother provided catering services so the cast and crew could have good food and tasty snacks while filming. There's nothing like good food to help serve as an incentive and reward for remembering your lines. It was mid-October when production wrapped. The work of the cast and crew was done.
Hey, yeah, so today I rap. It's kind of weird, only because we've been working on this for a few months now, so of course I've grown attached to the character and the rest of the cast and the story, but yeah, I'm excited about it, really anxious for you guys to see it. Think it's gonna be a really, really cool story.
I'm gonna miss this kid, but I'm gonna see him again anyway. But it's been really great. Fun ride, you know, roller coaster, all that jazz. This kid right here, he has
a roller coaster. How?
You know, roller coaster of fun.
Like a roller coaster of like fighting and emotion.
No. I mean,
we didn't fight.
On camera we fought, but you know, off camera, like this. Well, mostly like this, but more like this. But you know, it's just that's the only way I can put it, cause you know we good like that. We cool.
Yeah.
So, really talented, really awesome person. I don't know how he dances though, because every time he dances, I turn around, so I never see him.
Yeah, I'm not really too much of a dancer.
But
I leave it up to Damien. Damien does the dancing and the planking.
And the planking. The planking.
I was telling Alan before, like, you know, you started this from an idea, from a personal experience. Then it turned into an idea to write a book. And then from writing the book, it goes into receiving responses that probably went beyond what he could originally imagine. And those responses led into being pulled to say, hey, let's turn this into a film for those kids who may not, you know, be comfortable with reading. And let's bring it to a wider audience. And then so he puts in the screenplay, and we go from the idea of a book to now looking for real people to make this story come alive on screen. And I get to be part of that.
I think a lot of kids and some adults that probably went through these things as kids will be able to relate and be happy about seeing where we take the story. So kudos on writing a great script. It's been a great production. The cast is amazing. But this was different for me. I've never played a mom. I've never played an older woman. So I kept having to be kind of conscious of what, like, maybe little nuances my mom has. Because this person is significantly older than I am. So it's been interesting. But it's been fun.
After they reflected on their experience and said their goodbyes, it was then time to move to the next phase in the filmmaking process, the edit. Even though post-production is where the editing begins in earnest, it should be noted that during production, when filming is done, there is a basic edit that happens. At the end of each day of shooting, the raw footage for the day is reviewed to assess the progress and quality of the shoot in order to make sure that there are no major issues. If issues are found, plans can be made and/or adjusted to correct them. This is called reviewing dailies. As this process continues during the shooting schedule, approved takes of each scene are placed on the timeline within the computer editing software in order to get a general sense of the flow of the film. This is helpful because scenes are often shot out of sequence. This way, by the time post-production begins, the editor is not starting from scratch, but has already been working to assemble the film. For 5 months, from September 2011 to January 2012, Speedsuit the movie came together in the editing room, which was really a corner in Alan's apartment. You would imagine that by this point in the journey, it was all smooth sailing to the finish line. However, you would be mistaken. 6 weeks before premiere night, Alan's main computer, which he used to edit the film, gave up the ghost. Yes, it crashed with no hope of recovery. No footage was lost due to the fact that he kept multiple copies on several hard drives. But without a new computer, the editing process could not be finished. Alan told his father about the situation, and without hesitation, the man who had told his son that he believed in him purchased a brand new computer so he could finish the film. In the same apartment corner where the film was being edited, Alan also composed much of the musical score. This original music would enhance the emotional impact of the film. However, an orchestra of 20 musicians had been scaled down to a single piano, 2 electronic keyboards, an iPad, and a GarageBand music program. While not ideal to the original vision, it was what was available, and so it would have to suffice.
Hey everybody, it's Alan Weaver here. Here we are working on the film Speedsuit, based off of my novel Speedsuit Powers. And this is kind of, it's a little messy, but this is, I just wanted to show my workflow as I've been composing music as well as editing for the film. And right now I need to compose a piece of music for this particular scene, but unfortunately I don't have dual screen, and so GarageBand doesn't operate while Final Cut Pro is on at the same time. So I was hoping I'd be able to play this, minimize everything and play the scene, and then be able to have GarageBand on this side of the screen and be able to record on my keyboard here, but that's not going to work. So I have to do something different. And for my birthday last year, my parents bought me an iPad, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. It just didn't make sense. It wasn't on my list of things that I wanted. Didn't see the use of it at first. And then once I learned about apps, because I didn't know anything really about apps, and learned that GarageBand had an app, this iPad became my portable studio. I was able to work on music wherever I was on my commute into work, or wherever I get an idea, I can sit down and play it out and then transfer it into the computer and do more with it. So this became indispensable in terms of working on the music for the film. So now what I'm going to do in this particular case is I'm going to record the scene that I need with my iPad, and then I'm going to play it back on the iPad right here so I can watch it as I play the music for the scene. So you get to see how this works. Okay, that's it. Now we come over to the keyboard.
While all of the film components were being compiled, the members of Thessalonia Worship Center were mobilizing to prepare for the red carpet premiere event. Sandra Ward and Lavelle Williams spearheaded the effort to unify the church volunteers into a well-oiled machine of hospitality. Flyers were made and distributed. A giant screen and audio-visual equipment were secured. Wherever there was a need, the TWC family rallied together to meet it. And by Friday, February 3rd, 2012, everything was ready to go. The red carpet premiere served as the launching point for the 2012 Black History Month Speedsuit movie tour. As people began to arrive, those who had RSVP'd enjoyed a pre-premiere gathering where they could meet the cast, the director, the co-producer, their families, and their friends. When it was time for the movie to begin, over 400 people from all over New York City filled the church's sanctuary. A film screening of this size had not been done in this area of the Bronx in years. Excitement and anticipation was in the air. And when the lights went dark, you could hear a pin drop. But how would the film and its message be received? Alan, Monique Lisa, and the entire cast and crew were about to find out. The movie began, and the audience watched it unfold. They took the journey together. They laughed, they cried, they talked back to the screen. They were moved. And when the film ended, they roared with applause.
You know, bullying is truly an epidemic in our country, not just our country, but around the world, if you look at the studies. And we're seeing that our young people today just don't seem to have the coping skills, the mechanisms, the support systems to be able to handle the pressure. And so they're taking their own lives or they're taking the lives of others. And we have to do something in order to help stop that. If we all do our part, then we can make a difference. Personally, I attempted suicide a month after high school. Not necessarily because of bullying from the outside, but internal bullying, dealing with just low self-esteem and things like that. I just felt like I didn't have a future. So here it is now, you know, I'm 37, I'm alive, and I'm married, and I have a son. And so there's life after bullying, and we just need to be able to come together as a community and with other communities to help our young people to be able to make it through, to change the situation. And so I would just encourage you all to, I'm trying to do what I can do in order to help as many people as I can so that another person doesn't have to die because of bullying.
Three things I saw in the film and in the processing of the film. Number one, the power of a liberated imagination.
Amen.
Because of the fact that Alan had this in him for a long time, and it was a long time in doing it, but he did so because he had come to grips with his own life and his own self. Plus, he was in a congregation of people who were supportive of his imagination. Because imaginations can be confined and repressed. But when you're with the right people, and you have the right support, and you have the right spirit, a lot of people have good ideas, but they have a bad spirit. And you can't go so far with an attitude and hidden access to grind and all those kind of things as you saw Billy in the film. All those persons who have all these hang-ups, they came to a standstill as far as their personal progress and development. So regardless of the environment and other people, you have to maintain the freedom of the spirit inside of you. The quality of this film is just as good as most of the film that you see on TV, maybe movies. Number two, the power of a supportive community. Many people came together with a sense of community. And see, rather than to curse the world, you need to build your own world. And so when you're part of a community, that's your world. And that's why no one can afford to destroy their own world, otherwise they won't And sometimes people in the community, because they have a problem, they want to destroy their sole base for existence, and that is your community. That's why they said all politics is local. You have to be connected. And you can see clearly, Brother Allen, the value of belonging to an institution, in this case a church, because all of you pulled together to help Brother Allen without any envy and jealousy that people a lot of times have, but you gave up yourself and you became one with him. You took ownership of his imagination and you made it real. And then lastly, the power of perseverance. This has been a long time in the making, but you persevered. I was wondering how long it was going to take. But you got there. It shows you that if we really had a sense of community that was multiplying, we wouldn't complain so much about the system because we would have our own system.
Amen.
And we wouldn't, it doesn't mean that the world is just, but it means that you are justified in doing your own thing, amen, and building a sense of togetherness and cohesiveness with the people who are around you. And Alan, you were masterful in using the resources that were available to you. So everything that God gave you, you masterfully use all of the crumbs to make the loaf of bread that you have produced.
This night would not have been possible without Sandra and Lavelle being the event coordinators who helped rally everybody together in order. I mean, they sent out letters, they made phone calls, they went to restaurants, they everything that you see here, the screen, they spearheaded the group from the church and other people to make it happen so that I could just solely focus on the film. They said, Alan, we need to let us just focus on this and then you just focus on getting the film done. So I just want to publicly say thank you to you two for agreeing to be the event coordinators for tonight. Amen. And for helping to make this happen.
The film was a much smaller version of what it was intended to be, and had some areas which would be tweaked, modified, and improved after each screening. But the heart of the message and the actor's performance shined through loud and clear. This epic urban adventure story was on its way to making an increasing impact in both written and visual form. With each passing week, new audiences in churches and community centers watched the film and engaged in Q&A sessions with the producers and cast members. As 2012 continued beyond Black History Month, doors opened for Speedsuit to be seen at private schools and other locations. In total, Speedsuit was screened at 14 different locations during 2012.
Well, first I want to say thank you for agreeing to be a part of this documentary that I'm doing on the making of our film. If you can remember, what was it like for you as a producer and a casting director working on Speedsuit?
First, it was exciting for me, having the opportunity to audition some of the people that had been working with me in a production that I was doing. It felt like, okay, we've been doing theater. Let's try our hand at film. I've been in films up to that point, but I hadn't produced any. And so I was excited to be a part of the project, and I was also excited to bring in people that I knew could deliver. So for me, it was a good time, and the timing was perfect because we had that gap, in between the shows that were coming up. We had that nice gap, and I just loved, I was honored that you asked me, and then I just love the fact that I was able to work with some great people again. So that worked out really, really well.
What was it like for you as the lead production assistant?
I remember that it was a lot of work, a lot of responsibility, but also it was a lot of fun. getting to see the film transition from the storytelling in the book to being in a movie form.
I forgot you were a fan of the book, right? You read the book before the film. You were a fan of the story, and then when the opportunity came for being able to do the film, you were available and like you said, so you were able to know how the story went in the book, and then to see how it went, the similarities as well as the differences through the film. So you had a very unique angle, as a part of the crew. You had two tense scenes in the film. The first one was with Omar George playing Omar when he's ready to leave the house. After Malcolm gets sick with cancer, you had that scene, and then you also had coming to the hospital to check on Curtis after he got in an accident with the boots and the suit. Do you remember what was it like doing those two intense scenes?
I definitely vividly remember the hospital scene. Because I remember you let me ad-lib in that one. Because they were trying to convince mom to like let them do it again. And I was like, my baby is in the hospital. Like, what? Like, no. And it was so funny because Mr. G's, the actor that played Mr. G, Jim, he like had this teacher's demeanor. Like he just had, it was like his natural energy. So shooting that scene was really fun. But it made me it definitely made me work. And then the other scene, the really intense scene, that one was just super emotional. I remember that being like super emotional. So yeah, no, shooting both of them. I mean, I was a young actress, younger. I mean, I don't know how I was in my 30s, so young-ish.
Still young.
But like it was my first film. I mean, my second film, but my first time playing like a mom, not like a mom to babies, like a mom to boys. So like I had to really kind of channel my own, mother figures and to like keep that energy of like not reverting back to like the childless, unmarried, single 33-year-old that I was back then, or 32 that I was back then. So it was, and then we all as actors were so supportive of each other's moments. Like everybody gave each other their space to kind of like get into character. Everybody was so respectful of everybody else's instrument. That was really helpful too. Just having a cast that understood the process of acting and understood, that everybody had their own way of getting into character and like dropping in and like giving people space to do it. But then when it was time to go, everybody was ready to go. So that was a lot of fun.
It's really interesting how things work out, right? So like, Chris O'Neill, he was a member, his family, they were members at the church, and he had always wanted to act, and he had been doing commercials. And then of course, when the casting came out, he came in,
he was on board.
Curtis nailed it. And then, you came in for Trayshawn, did an excellent job with that. But then his parents called me and was like, we just got a call from Nickelodeon.
Yep, how to rock.
Come out to California to do, and we don't know what to do. And I was just like, it's Nickelodeon. Like, I can't pay you anywhere near what they're gonna be able to pay. So if Chris gets the role with Nickelodeon, go with Nickelodeon, and so then he went with Nickelodeon, and then that opened the spot, and you were able to come in as Curtis, and then like Justin had auditioned for Hakeem, which was Trayshawn's friend, and then we just switched you to Curtis and him, Justin became Trayshawn, and it was just like you guys were the characters. And then of course George, looked like Omar, right? Because he's just big buff
Yeah, the big.
Listen, I didn't know at first of all, I did not know the behind the scenes casting. I didn't know that there was another. This is mind blowing right now. So I'm processing. Because Damien and like you said, Damien and Justin bodied the role. It was just them. They totally. I can't imagine anyone else.
Right.
I think it was like perfectly casted, and the universe, God, whatever you believe in, manipulated and moved the pieces around so it would just fall right into place. And kudos to you, Alan, for being someone who just understood that and you just relinquished and you knew you had faith that it would work out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Damien, you were like, even though you wanted to do this other dramatic role on the other side, this was equally dramatic. Like you had to get roughed up and the glasses.
Yeah. And it was close to home too, because like even when I was like when I was younger and from being bullied, like, you know, I didn't like, you know, being a victim. And, you know, I think because the role was just so close to home, that was the only way I was able to like really like commit to it, you know, because like I knew what it was like. So, you know, it was part of it, but it was just like, man, I never would imagine this. Like, you know, part of me was just like, I would have preferred the tough guy.
Right. Well, you totally committed and it translated on screen and translated to me. And still 10 years later, I look at it and I'm just like, wow, those guys, they bodied it. Those guys bodied it, you know? So just so you know.
Appreciate it. You bodied your role too as well, big bro.
Thank you.
Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you three together was because of the power of your performance. I remember when we did one of the screenings at a community center and it was full of kids. And for the first half of the movie, they were paying attention, but you know, the parents and the adults said, shh, turn around, look at, when it got up to y'all, get your hands off me, Belva, you ain't my father. And like everybody's eyes went right to the screen. You could hear a pin drop. No kid was doing anything for the rest of the film, like from that point on. And I think that speaks to the power, like you said, the power of your performance. But I was wondering, like, man, how did you feel having to be so intense and so raw with one another and the physicality of it? Like, how did you negotiate that?
We were telling Trayshawn's backstory. And I felt for me, it was very important to show how intense his life was because you wanted people to love him but love him, understand him, because the bully has a backstory and people just see a bully and that's all that they see and never take the opportunity to see the backstory to get a full understanding and a picture. And so in order for that to happen, it had to be as real as possible because people who are actually living that could see right through it if it was going to be real or not. And my willingness to be slapped all came because I trust Steven, right? I trusted him. I knew he wasn't going to try to knock me like through the wall. But I also knew that he was going to slap me so that way it would be not only believable, but heartfelt. Because when audience members watch it, in my opinion, if there are no tears for the actor, then there are no tears for the audience members. And it hurt him to hit me because we were friends, but we knew and he knew that it was necessary because we weren't friends at that moment. Right. We were lovers and he was an abuser. And I was an abused woman. So when you understand who your character is, then the physicality part, in my opinion, becomes easy.
You know, thank you for trusting me, you know, with your face. Alan saying, okay, y'all cool with that? All right, cool, let's go. And then, you know, working with Justin, you know, the fight choreo, you know, it was kind of cool. I don't know if he had any worries, you know, because like Anissa said, you know, she trusts me. So I'm thinking that obviously, you know, at some point Justin, you know, trusted me to say, all right, cool, this is, you know, this is what it is, this is what we gotta do. And it was fun for me, you know, because I grew up watching action stuff and always wanted to choreograph a fight scene, you know, and the opportunity to play the bad guy, and then to see that I'm the bully, I'm the reason, one of the reasons why Trayshawn turns out to be the way he is, you know, it's like, okay, so like Anise was saying, we really gotta sell it as, you know, as best as we could. And, you know, we weren't sure what the, you know, camera angles were gonna be, how many camera angles there were gonna be. But I think we got it done and it came out pretty well.
I didn't really know anybody before coming into this film. So kudos to Stephen, especially. Throughout the years, we've developed a relationship, but that being the first time that we met and working together, if my memory serves me correctly, Stephen, I feel like you took on like directing that the fight choreo.
Mhm.
I distinctly remember like you giving me tips like, oh well, we can cheat it this way. So yeah, being able to not have that relationship, but to trust you, and you, especially you. I mean everybody, but especially you, because we were the people in that scene that were having that physical back and forth. And you know, allowing me to ask you questions and come to you for advice on, hey, how does this, and giving me pointers really made me feel comfortable.
And when you talk about trust, you know who had to trust us? Miss Lucille, whose house we were in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that nobody would accidentally go through the wall, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Because one time Steven did give me one good shove, and I thought I was going through that thing. I thought I was going through it.
The three of you gave such a tremendous voice, like you said, Anissa, right, to the viewers that are watching, who either have experienced something similar or they know someone who's gone through that. Like you crafted it for them to see and hear and experience. And I remember when I was writing the scene in the book, on repeat, I kept listening to Mary J. Blige's "No More Drama."
Wow.
Right. So while I was writing that entire scene, it's like, right, and it was just like, okay, because of Trayshawn's change, Shakira's got to get to the point where she says, you know what, I don't want any more drama in my life. And then that is the, okay, Melvin, give me the keys. Like nah, it's a wrap, right? And so you, hopefully, you may have, and I don't know, but you may have helped to set somebody free. So you, masterful, the way that you three brought that to life. All of the primary characters, all the primary cast said, Alan, you believe in the project, you know, we believe in you, let's do it, right? And so we went ahead, you know, we had lost 90% of the budget before we even began. You know, and the movie became so much more smaller when that happened, but yet, even in the midst of the obstacles that arose because the budget was smaller, God provided
Yes.
every step of the way.
Blessings in disguise.
Yeah.
What might have been too big and overwhelming to handle now became something smaller and more personal, something that the people who stayed, and that was before I even joined the cast, but I would have said the same thing. I can tell you 10 years later, it's now these people are invested in many ways. Now, before anything started, this horrible thing became a blessing because it showed the entire cast and crew. I always include crew because they're part of this.
Yep.
And it showed them this is important. If you want it to be important, we had to make little sacrifices along the way. And maybe it is better because you lost that angel. It certainly had everybody focus on what has to happen, and only the people who were ready to commit stayed. In retrospect, it always works out the way God says, but except He doesn't tell us beforehand.
Right.
It's at the end of it, He just smiles down and say, "You see,
Yeah.
okay, okay, all right."
Yeah. Thanks.
It worked.
You're right. Yeah. Right. It's funny. It's 10 years later, and it never dawned on me that perhaps God allowed the loss in order to solidify the group
Probably.
in a way that had the money
Couldn't have,
just come in, we wouldn't have been solidified.
you wouldn't have had a reason, you wouldn't have a cause to get everybody together as tight as they were.
Yeah.
I mean, who am I to say? But it
makes
might
sense.
have been that way.
Yeah. It's so thank you for that.
For me, again, when I think back, I was just really excited to be on set. So to be part of a project, like I was already a film buff, like someone who paid attention to the behind the scenes. I was the type of person who would rent the VHS or the DVD and watch the director's cut with the director's commentary, because I was always very curious on how films were made. And I was very curious on why certain choices were ended up in the film. So when I was on set, I was a sponge. So every single experience has a sweet spot in my memory. A couple that stand out. One, going to the Bronx to when we're looking at the new home and we walk in and we're upset that now our lives have downsized because our dad passed away. Even though it was a somber part of the script, I just remembered so much joy being in the room with the food and the family. Exactly. It was just so much fun. And then, so that's one. And then the other one, I think we were at your parents' house. Were we in New Rochelle?
Yep.
Where the backyard and and then we were building the speed suit. Yep. So the collaborative effort. Yeah, I remember that. And that was just so much. And I think that night, did we do like fake rain or something?
Yep. So you had
oh man, I got soaked. Again, at that time, I was like 15 going on 16 at that time, but like, I was still very much a kid around that time. So I think the really like fun parts that stood out for me, other than the work, because I was always so used to like being in a project, like again, Monique, Lisa, we were always doing stuff, but I think the parts that really stood out to me the most was like kind of like the unity behind the scenes, because like it was like a traveling family almost. Like we were always doing stuff together. Whenever we weren't working, we were just having a good time, like between stuff. I think it was really more so the just the little fun moments that we had together.
And I'm reminded, George, you mentioned all the good food, right? Thankfully between, my wife and her mom, they were the craft table catering and made sure that there was always food on set, whether it was for the scene or whether it was snacks in between. There's food to keep. You got to keep the actors happy, right?
And boy, was I.
Alan, and I can say 10 years removed, I'm doing commercials now. I'm on big sets, major sets. And the experience that I had with you as far as like crafty is on par. We're right here, baby.
We did 4 meals in the movie, right? So Curtis, Omar, and their dad, Malcolm. And then, of course, there's Thanksgiving at Mr. G's house. That was food. Then when Kelly came over to meet the family, that was a meal. When when Trayshawn came over, that was a meal. That was actually food. It's like, all right, and action. And at one point, George, you're like, this chicken is real good. Probably like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to just eat food. For a whole scene. You mentioned the ad-libbing in the hospital scene, and you came up with two lines that I'm sure were not in the script, right? So there was this ends, if like I'm gonna pull the mama card and this ends today. Like that was number one. I was like, ooh, that was good, right? And then you had we're making history, and you're like, just don't let me have to make you two history. And I was just like, man, I wish I would have thought of that. Like those were two major lines. I was like, if I ever do a re-release of Speedsuit Powers, like Miranda's gonna be saying these two lines in there.
No, it was really special to me that you let me kind of go and find it.
How did the film impact you, both personally and professionally?
Professionally, it was nice to have a film to say that I was in, because I was still building my resume back then. I didn't have the credits I have now. So to be able to be like, I was in a feature film was a pretty big deal. But then personally, just the message, it was a family film. So I felt good about like letting my family see it, and like my younger, the young people that I was interacting with, like letting them see it. It was about STEM before we knew what STEM was.
Right.
But in the moment, it was just, I was so proud. I was very, very proud, because it was a really polished piece. And I remember, it's so funny. I remember, and this was like when I was first kind of coming into my producer space. And do you remember when you had shared the first edit with me and you asked me for feedback, and I like had all these notes? It's so funny. I had the nerve to have notes. I was still kind of coming into my producer director self, but I was like, oh, you know what? If you, and like, it was so awesome for you to even make space for me for that. Like you didn't have to. And the fact that you saw something in me that said, well, she could have viable opinions about this.
I remember on set, you always had good ideas, right? So even if we were blocking, or even if we were talking through camera angles, or that obviously even some of the lines, the ad-libbing and things like that, like you always had good insight on that. What kind of impact did the film have on you, both personally and even professionally?
That is a great question. Thank you for asking that. For me, dealing with the fact that I have a son that was bullied, it put it into perspective that I knew he was safe because it was a movie, but it made me think about what he actually went through and what I went through as a child being bullied. And so for me, it was very profound to be able to be in a movie and see both sides of the coin. You didn't just leave it at the lead character's the victim, but you also showed how the bully also had a backstory and also had to deal with bullying. So very profound. It made me think differently about it. And not to say that I didn't know, but it was even more profound when you're dealing with characters, even though they're acting, but you're dealing with it and you don't know what's going on in the back of their mind. So for me, it made me really think about how we look at bullies and how we look at the people who have become the victim because someone else was victimized. So, and I think for the audience, I think they were able to see that. You put a human face on someone we could have just looked at as a villain. We could have just looked at the character Trayshawn as a villain, but you also humanized him. So it left an impact on me to really look at how people who are bullying, how they may be experiencing the same thing, and to the point where they don't see any other way to live but to do the same thing that's been done to them. Professionally, I was happy to be able to be a part of presenting something like this. Again, giving a voice to those who seem to not have a voice. And any opportunity we had to share this information, it made me feel good because it showed that people are concerned about bringing about projects that can change the world, can give people a different outlook. So professionally, I felt very happy. I was proud to be a part of a project that wasn't just something that would traumatize people, but also give hope and give statistics and say, hey, wake up, this is happening, but these are some of the things that we can do to handle it, or look at how they handled it, and maybe this can be an option. So professionally, I felt like as having it on the resume was a big deal. Having it on my IMDb page was a big deal because it spoke to many people, and being a part of that was to be a big deal. So thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity.
But were there any other themes in the story that really resonated with you?
Changing lives, um, your own life and the bully's life, and that I guess it's the same thing. You never have to remain down. You never have to be afraid. There's always power that comes not from boots and a suit, but that comes from inside you, that was put there by God, and that might be difficult to get out, but there are people out there who can help you do it. And I think that, sorry, but I think that's really the theme of the show. Um, yeah, the bully was, I think, just a way to get to that. Um, and somebody asked me at one point, how did you feel being the token white guy, the only white guy in the show? And I said, was I? I didn't notice. And I was kind of joking in a way, but nobody treated me differently. And it was all one of the reasons I've done a lot of shows where I was the only white guy. I don't consider this a black show. It's just a show that, since you wrote it, some of your friends and your experiences included a lot of blacks. Therefore, that makes sense. But to me, this wasn't a black show. This was a human story. A Everybody has these things. I've been bullied, and everybody out there has, not just one section of the world. These are universal problems and universal solutions.
Yeah.
So that is what makes it rise up. So there isn't one audience for your show. Anybody can get something out of this. And that's what I take out of it.
What was it like working off of each other for some of the tense scenes?
I really had to use my imagination to really, I do remember trying to put myself superimposing like scenarios that I've had with my own brother, and that conversation, what would be the emotion that I would have? Almost like, you can't believe this is happening. You want to just jump through the phone, change things. You want to hear what's going on, but at the same time, you want to cut your brother off because he's not saying the right words that you want him to say. That's the emotional space that I was in for that particular conversation.
I've had a lot of older people to look up to, but I never really had an older sibling. So it was kind of a new dynamic for me. The way I was able to get through those really was kind of like pretend that like my dad was on the other side of the phone or something like that, because, and then of course we had George, on the other side of the wall pretending, feeding the lines or whatever. But like, it was one of the many challenges, especially as a young actor for myself, to like really kind of tap into those emotions and what it would be like to confide in somebody like that, because I'm the oldest brother in my family, so it's like it's one of those things where I either have to imagine what would I say to a younger sibling myself, or I have to put somebody else in that slot to kind of like really know how I would feel emotionally, if I were in that situation, if I'm like being bullied and I have nobody else really to confide in. I don't want to tell my parents because my parents will freak out, but I don't really have like a friend like that to like really put myself in that position. So I think it was one of the many challenges I had, just kind of really trying to figure my way through the role.
At the time that that you started shooting, around the time that you started shooting, I had given up on my own personal dreams because of a tragedy that occurred just a few years before. and watching you pursue your dreams and watch and then experiencing it come alive, and me and just having a part of that experience myself encouraged me to start believing in dreaming again. And that was a game changer for me.
I have to honestly say that whether the budget came through or not, I was not in the least bit deterred. I was super excited to be involved. And the motivation, because even though the money was needed for different things, the motivation was never the money. So I don't even remember flinching. I do remember saying, Alan, we got this. We're good. We're good. Don't worry about it. Because, just as a people, we're so used to doing so much with so little. We can do anything with nothing, and we did it. And the people who were able to enjoy it, because so many people got a chance to see it, we were fine. Sometimes when that happens, it makes you, or it shows you what you're made of. And every day, 100%, everyone showed up and we got it done. So it wasn't necessarily the budget, but it was more the desire that made it happen. The desire to do it, the desire to bring that message forward, the desire to work together, and everyone just pull, even if it was 2 or 3 hats. It was just really, this is what we said we were going to do. We're going to do it. So I think what happens is once it's locked into our hearts that this is what we want to do, we'll be tested on whether or not it's really our true intention to do it. That's just my mindset. If we say we're going to do it, we'll be tested. And however we're tested will show whether or not, if that's what we say we want to do, then there's no turning back. There's really no turning back.
Speedsuit was before its time. Way before its time, actually. It was on time. It was God's time. But for society, it was definitely before its time. And my hope is that in this now new world of STEM and STEAM and all of these things, that the books can be received, but that there is also an opportunity for refurbished life in the film. And there's so much new technology. Who knows what a new cut would look like? Like what, like, you know what I mean? Like maybe there's a world where there's a 10th anniversary renewal cut or something. But I feel like the film has so much potential with this world that we're in now because of the focus on tech and STEAM and STEM and invention and Black ingenuity and all of that, especially coming from young people. Like, we live in the young people's generation. I'm very proud to have been a part of something so cutting edge for its moment, but that also lands right where the world is today, 10 years after the fact. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of that and for continuing to, see me as family and still check on me and include me in these opportunities to talk about what we did, because what we did was ordained and it was blessed and it was special. And I'm very, very happy that I was a part of it.
What a journey we've taken, looking at the past as it relates to the Speedsuit Powers novel and Speedsuit film. But what has happened since the film? Would you believe that Book 1 has its own theme song?
Speedsuit
Alan worked with a young artist named Shelley IV to develop both the theme song as well as a song called Why I Feel This Way, which explores why Trayshawn bullies others and how Curtis helped change the trajectory of his life.
Mama swore I took her dreams away. Daddy gone, not much I can say. Mama wishes I was never made. Damn, this is why I always feel this way.
Alan also crafted the lyrics to the song Who Are You Running From? And collaborated with singer Christian King, who provided the vocals.
Who are you running from? Where you running to? Have you stopped to think? would do to you if you run from your fears and run from your dreams too. Everybody loses.
And we haven't yet mentioned that the novel grew into a trilogy that was completed in 2016. 3 books tell the story of Curtis, Trayshawn, and Kelly as they make their way through high school, college, and beyond. If you thought book 1 was an epic urban adventure, then know that books 2 and 3 increase the scope and weight of that story. In 2018, the world of Speedsuit Powers began expanding into a series with the release of a 4th book entitled Flight, a Speedsuit Powers story. The accompanying tagline was, "The trilogy may be complete, but the story continues." In February of this year, Discourse, a Speedsuit Powers story, which is the 5th book in this series, was released. Alan has been busy writing and is working on several more books for what he calls the Speedsuit Powers Expanded Universe. He is also working on an art book to showcase the collection of sketches, drawings, and illustrations that he and other artists have created over the years to help bring the world of Speedsuit Powers to life. The majority of this artwork, which encompasses over 250 pieces, has never been seen before. And then, there is the Speedsuit Powers audiobook, currently being produced and slated to be released this September 2022. Over the years, many people have asked if an audiobook was available. Now, the long wait is almost over. So the future is full of possibilities. There's an entire world waiting to be produced as a trilogy of films, a television series, or some other unexplored endeavor. Whatever happens in the future, we all can enter the world of Speedsuit Powers now, first and foremost through reading the books and watching the film, which is currently available online on YouTube. Speedsuit Powers has been hailed by readers as an epic urban adventure. The independent film has added an audio-visual layer to that story. And here we are in 2022 looking back at that film, which was created a decade ago. A lot has changed in our world since 2012, but what has not is our need and desire for powerful stories which seek to provide hope and bring out the best in us. At the beginning of this documentary, we mentioned a woman that purchased 200 copies of Speedsuit Powers and gave them out in her community. Her name is Dr. J. Helen Perkins. We would like to end this film with a conversation Alan had with her about the significance of this story.
As I was reading your book, it was so authentic. The characters are authentic. The characters are relatable. And so, and the themes that you mentioned themes in the book. And so I knew that there would be many, many people, young people that could relate to the story. And so when I read the story, I knew it was something that needed to be shared, and I knew it would be impactful.
Not only did you enjoy it, but then you made a decision to move from just enjoying the book to not just telling others about it, but you made a significant purchase as it came to the book.
Yes, I was able to purchase 200 copies of the book and to share the book with people, young people. But what I found was parents were also reading it. And so parents and board member and people were asking for a copy of it. And so I shared with many, many young people. Of course, that was the whole purpose of purchasing it. But I wanted to talk to you or talk a second about the themes, because on page 225 of your book, as you well know, there are 3 themes that emerge. And so these 3 themes, social, emotional, and cultural learning, are just totally in the book. You may not have planned it that way, but they are all over the book. And so when you think about the power of influence,
That's a theme that you mentioned. That's a theme one that you mentioned in the back of your book. The power of influence, when you think about social and emotional, is relationship skills.
Right.
The power of influence is the relationship skills, because each character's life is influenced by someone else in the story. And then theme two, you identify purpose and identity. That's self-management, setting your goals, managing your life with others involved. And then the theme three that you mentioned in the book is the ability to choose. And we talk about teaching our scholars responsible decision making. And so what we would like to see is these types of themes used in schools daily and shared by using stories. Stories are so relatable, and they help the brain to remember things in a story format. And so these are so important. Now, you do say, what other things did you discover in the story? We don't have time for me to do a list on what other things are found in the story, but you've got so many life skill things within this story. And it's not for just, Curtis was a ninth grader, but this story goes down to third grade. I've even know a parent that's reading it to a second grader. And so, yeah, a parent in Oklahoma is reading it to a second grade girl. So she'll be able to relate to Kelly, right?
Right.
Curtis's friend. We got a girl in there, Curtis's friend. And so it's just such a relatable, a story that is worth discussing because it does cause young people to relate to their own feelings and to examine their own emotions. And that's why it's such an impactful story. There was a school board member, because I'm very involved in our district, an urban school district, the largest in the state. And she read it and she said, Helen, I read it in 2 days.
Wow.
School board member. She said it was so good that I just couldn't stop reading it. So she read it in 2 days. Her daughter was being bullied, and so she could definitely relate to Trayshawn in the story, and the fact that he was a bully, and that her daughter was being bullied. And so she definitely supported the story. She noted that pastors should share this story to the youth in their churches and invite you to speak and lead discussions. That was her suggestion. That's how powerful. And this is a strong advocate for our scholars in the district. And so she supported that. A parent in Oklahoma was reading the story, not only to the second grader, but also to the 11-year-old boy. And his father had passed. And he related so much to Curtis and how Curtis was dealing with the death of his father. And he learned some things in the book about how to deal with death of a father. And he was so related to how Curtis was addressing the death of his father with God and friends and building his power suit, that he looked at his mother while she was reading the story to them, and he said, it'll be all right. It will be all right. He's in therapy, and therapy has not gotten him to this point, but he related so well to Curtis. And I can do this, even though my father is gone, I can do this. This is a true story. This is an absolute true story. And that he stopped her and he said, it'll be all right. That's just the impact of the story. And here you are talking about adult in New York, and I'm talking about adults in Memphis, Shelby County, Tennessee, and in Oklahoma and Oklahoma City and Texas. And so we know that the more it's out there, the more people will tune into it and see what we see. This is definitely a global story. I will continue to advocate. I am an advocate for Speedsuit Powers, and you well know that. But I think there are many churches that are waiting on this opportunity. They may not know it, but then I would also like to see those churches bring in the film and have you come in and lead discussions. my prayer is that God takes this story and uses it even more. He's been using it since it was published. God's been using it to minister to our youth, and I would like to see even more so. And then, like I said earlier, it's a fun story. It's just a fun story. If we forget about all the things that emerge in there, then social, emotional, and cultural learning, it's still a fun story. And so it's fun to read. I wish we had power suits and speed and
working on it. You shared some things today that I didn't know about the type of impact that 12 years later the story is still having.
Right.
And that's very, very humbling. And I'm trying to hold back tears too. So so I really appreciate you, and I appreciate you taking the time to just be able to share so that we can have some of this information available on the documentary, and people can get a greater sense of the impact that the book has had and is having and can have going forward.
God has blessed you with powerful stories.
All praise and glory and honor go to him.
Exactly.
Thanks for watching Behind the Speedsuit, the making of the film, a 10-year retrospective on the film, its message, and its impact. We hope this documentary serves as inspiration, motivation, and education so you can run your dreams.
Speedsuit Powers.
Run your dreams, run your dreams, run your dreams.
Speedsuit Powers.
Run your dreams, run your dreams, run your dreams, run your dreams. Who you running from? Where you running to? Will you go back? What you gonna do? When opposition comes, will you stand and fight? Will you use your mind to rise and see the light? I know it gets hard when push turns to shoving. Gotta make a move right now or think of something. Problems coming through like rain clouds. Through the streets I be rushing. I've seen the end of the maze now. I'm not running from nothing. 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 I'm not running from nothing.
Speedsuit Powers.
Run your dreams, run your dreams, run your dreams.